Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box, and well, news has just come out obviously recently that Deontay Wilder is willing to take 40% to face Anthony Joshua. Now, I've said this in the past, a lot of people were going mad about the whole 50-50 demand that Deontay Wilder was making. I said, look, it's a process of negotiation, yeah? Same thing Joseph Parker did. Joseph Parker asked for 50-50, then he asked for 60-40, then eventually they settled on 65-35 was the split for this fight on the 31st of March between AJ and Parker. But initially, that's where Parker and his team started, at 50-50. You set a high price and then you go haggle back and forth with your competitor until you get the price you want. Now, Wilder says he's willing to take 40%. Remember what Wilder also said on top of that he said whatever I take in this first fight, in the rematch, Anthony Joshua would have to take the same amount. So I'm just going to play you a little audio that I took from IFL TV. Now, it's not the whole interview, it's just an audio of what Eddie Hearn had to say in terms of Deontay Wilder's offer of 60-40%. So shout out to Kugan Cassius and obviously IFL TV. I will link put a link to the entire interview with Eddie Hearn in the description of the video, so you guys can go over there and watch it. It's about an hour and 24 minutes long, so good interview. As always, you get from IFL, but I'm just going to play you the audio quickly and then go into give you my opinion of what I think of this whole situation.
What does he want, Wilder? What does he want? 50-50 split?
No, I think he's come on now and said
60-40.
Yeah. Which, it's getting closer.
But then he gets the highest split in the...
If he wins.
If there's a rematch.
Yeah, if he wins, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, to be honest with you, like, our focus is solely on the Parker fight. I've not talked... I know AJ wants to fight Wilder, but I've not... it's not like we've sat down and looked at the deal. Let's get May the 31st of March. This is a tough fight. This fight for me is tough.
So there you have it, Eddie Hearn on IFL TV, just ran about Deontay Wilder's offer of 60-40, where he's basically turned around and said that it's getting close. Now, my personal opinion, I've always said I didn't have a problem with 60-40. I didn't agree with the whole 50-50. I have said a lot of things about Eddie Hearn and AJ and been very critical. But one thing I've consistently said is that I don't believe it's a 50-50 split in terms of purses. I think AJ deserves that a little bit more because obviously the amount of money he's been making, the viewerships to his fights, etc. and stuff like that. So I do agree that he's the A side of this fight, this potential fight, and should get that little bit more than Deontay Wilder. But at the same time, I've said Deontay Wilder is the WBC champion of the world, just like I said about Joseph Parker, and you've got to give him a certain level of respect. And I haven't got a problem with 60-40. I think 60-40 is a pretty good deal. Eddie Hearn, on the other hand, he's turning around and saying that, well, no, we're getting closer, which makes me think he wants to offer Deontay Wilder the same deal as he's done with, I suppose, with Joseph Parker, which is a 65-35 split. I think that's the number he's thinking at, 35% for Deontay Wilder. If he does agree, or that AJ agrees that, yeah, you know what, I'll take whatever we're offering Deontay Wilder. If I lose, I will take the same in the rematch. So if Wilder was to win the first fight, that means AJ would have to take 35% and Deontay Wilder would get 65. And no, I don't believe AJ would lose the first fight. I've said it a number of times. I've been very critical of AJ and Eddie Hearn, consistently. But at the same time, I've consistently also said that I believe AJ would win that fight against Wilder. That's why I want to see the fight, because I think he beats him. I don't know why we got to wait around any longer or allow this fight to marinate any longer, because I think the hype's already there for the fight. You can make this fight the end of the year, November, December, and you've pretty much already sold it. Deontay Wilder's been very vocal on the other side. Obviously, AJ's been quiet at the moment, and rightfully so, because he's preparing for Joseph Parker. And at the same time, I don't want to overlook Joseph Parker, because even though I've predicted that I think Joseph Parker will lose to AJ, it's still a tough fight. He's a very technically sound fighter. He could cause an upset. You don't know. It's a heavyweight division, for crying out loud, as well. So you don't know. One punch can just change the direction of a fight completely. So I don't want to overlook him, or because I feel a little bit bad for doing that as well, because it's like saying, well, AJ's going to walk past Joseph Parker and go on to Deontay Wilder. We don't know that. We've got to take Joseph Parker seriously as well. But in that audio I just played for you guys from IFL TV, Eddie Hearn also said that he hasn't even discussed the fight with AJ. He hasn't discussed it at all. They've been fully focused on Joseph Parker. I get that, but I'm talking before even the fight was discussed with Joseph Parker, Wilder was screaming out for AJ. Yeah, and very little attempts in making the fight back then, before the discussions with Joseph Parker took place. Very little attempts were made. Now, Shelley Finkel recently at the post-press fight conference of Wilder Ortiz recently said that there's been very little communication between himself and Eddie Hearn, or his father Barry Hearn, since that initial meet back in November. And I'm just going to play you the audio from that as well, just so you know, if you missed it, what Shelley Finkel had to say.
You'd like to share with everyone?
What I want to address and try and put to bed once and for all is this Joshua fallacy. The fallacy is that Deontay, in some fashion, is avoiding Joshua. I have a letter here that is dated November 29th. It was the evening of the day that I met with Eddie Hearn's father, Barry Hearn. He said at the meeting, I think we could do bigger business in Las Vegas because I could bring over 20,000 Brits who would spend more money just like they did for Ricky Hatton. I said, fine, put the numbers together, we're ready to make a deal. I got a letter, and I'll quote it from Eddie. Glad you had a good chin wag with the old man. You know that came from him. That's the language we speak here. I will get the respective P&Ls, profit and loss, to you this week for discussion, meaning what we would make in the UK, what we would make in Vegas. All the best, Eddie. That was November 29th. I have never heard from him since. Okay? The bottom line is, if someone wants a fight, it gets made. We have not begun negotiation with him. We are fine to fight in the UK. We are fine to fight in Vegas. In one of the more recent interviews with Eddie Hearn, why'd you take such a risky fight? That's our business. You want to fight who you fight, fine. You want to try and dodge Deontay so you could pick up another payday? The fact is, if it was another sport like football, you'd have a Super Bowl and the number one team would be there. If it was the World Series, if it was the NBA, here you have one of the two best fighters in the world ready to fight. The dollars will get made if Joshua wants it. I know, no matter what is said, he doesn't want to fight now. Nothing to do with cowardice, nothing to do with anyone else. Deontay, he knows, is the only one who could beat him. He will fight when it's ready. Right now, he's dodging us. Thank you.
So that was Shelley Finkel giving his take, and obviously talking about a letter or an email, I'm guessing it was, received by Shelley from Eddie Hearn, basically saying that, we'll look at the numbers and then I'll get back to you, and he never got back to Shelley Finkel at all. Now, Shelley Finkel's also turned around and said that if a fighter really wants a fight, the fight will be made. Do I agree with that? Yeah, I do. Because let's look at Lomachenko versus Linares, for example, which has recently been announced and been officially confirmed that the fight's going to happen on May 12th on ESPN out in America. Linares wanted that fight. He told his managers, he told his promoter Golden Boy, and said, hey, I want that fight, make that fight happen. Pretty sure Lomachenko did the same on his side, and they've come up, they've come up with a way to make the fight happen. They've come up with a compromise, and which works for both sides: HBO, ESPN, Golden Boy, Top Rank, Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, and and the fighters have got what they wanted. So it's an example of if you want a fight to happen as a boxer, as a fighter, you just need to push for it. So do I agree with Shelley Finkel that if AJ really wants a fight, he would push for it? Yeah, because AJ's a superstar. End of the day, AJ is the superstar, and Eddie Hearn will have to listen to what that guy says. I mean, how many times have you heard Eddie Hearn say, talk about his philosophy in terms of how he promotes boxers and, the sport itself and the fighters that are under him, under the Matchroom brand. He always says it's up to the fighter. I always tell the fighters, you've seen it on IFL interviews when he's talking to fighters and they're right there with him. Ask him what I say to him, and it's always up to the fighter. If the fighter wants this, that's what I go out and do. If the fighter wants that, then that's what I go out and do. I always ask the fighter, it's always up to the fighter. Which means if that's the way you promote as a promoter, that means your fighters have all the say in what direction their career goes in. I'm sure he puts his 2 pence in there as well and give them his advice. But if that's the way you promote boxing, then and you've got a superstar like Anthony Joshua, and he is a superstar, surely the final decision it comes down to Anthony Joshua. And if Anthony Joshua really wants that fight against Wilder, he'll make it happen. He'll say to Eddie, go get me that fight. I want that fight by December, go get me that fight. Start working, alright, I'm focusing on Joseph Parker, I don't want to overlook him, let me get through this. In the meantime, in the background, go start negotiating. Because if I get through Parker, I want Wilder next. But we haven't seen any of that. And in my personal opinion, I said this in my podcast, my weekly podcast called About the Ropes, go check that out. I think it was in episode 3 where I said I don't believe we're going to see this fight between Joshua. If Joshua gets past Parker, we're not going to see Joshua versus Wilder till the end of 2019. And this is the reason why I think that. I'm going to play you another audio. Check this out.
Daniel Taylor, if AJ wins, who would you pick next? Wilder at Wembley?
They want me to fight Mike Tyson, Wilder, Mike Tyson again, Wilder again, Tyson Fury, put him in under the knife, chop him up a bit, get him back to fighting weight, back to Wilder. But you know what, right? This little devil on my shoulder, the fighting man, says Wilder at Wembley, boom. And then this devil on my shoulder, the manager hat, says, what's best to guide my career? So it's playing devil's advocate, putting them together and seeing what works out best for my career. Do you know what I mean?
But so, Wilder at Wembley?
It depends. I think if it's pushed that way, it has to happen. And I just think, I'm going to do things my way, innit? If Wilder works, we're going to make it happen. If Wilder isn't the right opponent for next year, then we'll put it back on into 2019. But I'm just going to do things my way. People just can't rush my career. That's one thing I've learned, is that I've got a career, I need to map it out. I'm going to take fights at the right time for me. And if it's next year or the year after or the year after, when I fight him, I'll be in a position to beat him.
So that was AJ on last year on Sky Sports Toe to Toe podcast, and sounds like a man who's clearly in charge of his own career, right? This is a guy who says he's not going to have his career rushed. He's going to pick fights and take fights when it suits him, when he's ready. So is Anthony Joshua saying that he's not ready to take that fight right now? He's already said in that clip that I just played you, the audio clip I just played you, that if not 2018, then 2019. He also said in that podcast, if you go and watch it again, maybe even 2020. But I don't see this fight happening in 2018. I'll be really shocked. I really will, because if Eddie Hearn came and said, right, December signed, the deal's signed, contracts are signed, they've agreed everything, December the 10th or whatever, we're going to see Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder, I would be really shocked. And the other thing you got to remember, he's always talking about Anthony Joshua raising his profile in the US by fighting Jarrell Miller, potentially, if he gets past Joseph Parker, to fight Jarrell Miller at in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center in August. And let's not forget, he's got his mandatory challenger, WBA mandatory challenger, Alexander Povetkin, to think about as well. So that will probably have to be potentially the next fight in December. Because AJ says he wants to fight 3 times this year. So he's got Joseph Parker, he'll have Jarrell Miller in August, and then he'll probably have to have his mandatory by the end of the year or early 2019. And that's why I don't think the fight between Wilder and Joshua won't happen and won't take place until 2019. You know, at the same time, like I just said in that clip that we just played for you, AJ quite clearly seems like someone who's in control of his career and does things at his own pace. Now, I've had some AJ fans in the past jump on my videos on the comment section and leave things like, oh, well, he's making a ridiculous demand of 50-50 Wilder, he's pricing himself out, etc. I've turned around and said, well, it's a process of negotiations. That's what Joseph Parker did initially. Like I said earlier on in the video, he demanded 50-50 at the beginning, and then they went back and forth until they came up with a number that was reasonable for both sides. So Anthony Joshua got 65, Parker got 35. With Wilder, when he made that 50-50 demand, there was plenty of interviews Eddie Hearn did over social media, YouTube, etc. and stuff like that, where he's saying that, you know, he's living in fantasy land, you know, he's not going to get that kind of money, etc. But instead of talking to the media, why were you not talking to Wilder? Why didn't you go back and forth with Wilder like you have done with Joseph Parker? You know? Do you see what I'm trying to say? You can criticise Wilder for his 50-50 demand as much as you want, but at the same time, you've got to remember, Eddie Hearn's made no attempt to negotiate with Wilder. That meeting with Shelley Finkel that they had, initially they went over to try and arrange and make and sign a deal for a fight between Wilder and and Dillian White. And they said, fine, we'll take the Dillian White fight, but we want written in the contract that you will attach Anthony Joshua to it. So they weren't talking about purse splits or anything like that. All they were simply saying was, we'll fight Dillian White, as long as in the contract it says, if Deontay Wilder beats Dillian White, he will get AJ next. And all you have to put also in there is things like, you could put a little bit of a paragraph in there saying, well, that's dependent on, we agree on purse splits for the fight. So you will get AJ providing both sides agree what the split for the fight is going to be, if that makes sense. But like Shelley Finkel said, he never came back to him. He's never heard from him since. He's never even attempted or tried to negotiate. I'm pretty sure all of this went on before the negotiations with Joseph Parker started. So again, you know, all you guys out there could turn around and say, oh no, Wilder's pricing himself up and stuff like that. It's not pricing himself out. He knows himself, Wilder, that he's not going to get 50%. He knows that. But he's got to set a high enough percentage number in order to get a number that he wants. It's the same with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker, I said it right at the beginning, I think Joseph Parker's looking for 35, even when he was demanding 50. I said, I bet he's looking for 35%. And look what happened. He settled for 35%. If he went in there and just said 35% to Eddie Hearn would have probably priced him down even further. So it's a negotiation tactic. You set it high and then you go back and forth with each other. I've said this time and time again. And Eddie Hearn's not done anything with it. Now Wilder's come back and he said two things since then. He said, whatever you offer me, your boy has to take it in the rematch. And someone played it on my, again, go to my podcast, episode 3, my weekly podcast, you know, where the interviewer asked Wilder, he said, you know, they're going to say 70-30. And he said, they could say 90-10. I'm that confident I'm going to win I'm going to beat AJ. And in return, he'll have to take 90-10. 90 to me, 10 to him. You know, again, you didn't go there and say, oh, you didn't call him on his bluff or anything like that. Then he comes down and says, all right, look, I'll take 60-40 in favour of Anthony Joshua. Now you're saying, all right, it's getting closer. But you're not actually picking up the phone and saying to him, all right, you know what, you said 60-40. Look, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I feel. I think you're deserving of 35%. AJ gets 65%. And yeah, we'll agree. If you beat AJ, which I doubt you will, we'll give you 65% in the rematch and AJ 35% in the rematch. We'll swing it the other way for the rematch if you win. But none of that's happened. No negotiations have taken place. No attempt of a negotiation has taken place. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to play you an audio clip again of the gloves are off, AJ versus Parker, and what AJ said at the end. It's a very short clip, audio clip, but I'm just going to play it for you quickly. So bear with me.
What can happen come fight night? Does that make a difference to you? Like, I'll punch him out the ring as well. Tyson's a clown, man. I'm not worried about no one else. You know, Wilder could have been here. Wilder could have been fine, but he didn't step up. He talked it, but he didn't step up. He did. That's the difference. And that's why I respect and I have to honour the challenge.
Now, I'm a little bit confused by what he said there in terms of him saying Wilder never stepped up, that Wilder could have been here but he never stepped up, Joseph Parker did, and that's why this fight's happening, and I have to respect that. Not be funny, like I said, you haven't negotiated the fight. You haven't attempted to negotiate the fight. You've talked about how that fight may happen in 2019, 2020. I've played the audio already for this. I don't understand what he means. Wilder is consistently calling him out. Consistently, that is him saying, I'm stepping up, let's make this fight. Yeah, he's now at 60-40. Yeah, if when he made that 50-50 demand months ago, or whenever it was, if you had started going, if Eddie Hearn actually made an actual legitimate attempt to go back to Wilder and say, look, 50-50, no way, mate. You're not going to get that. Listen, let's talk about this over the phone quickly. We're not going to give you 50-50. Yeah? We're willing to give you 70-30. Then Wilder turns around and says, nah, look, that's not right. 55-45. No. You know, we'll offer you 65-35. And Wilder turned and said, no, I'll take 60-40. Or, you know, they should have tried to negotiate. And you could have made that fight. But you didn't even attempt. So to turn around and say that Wilder never stepped up is wrong. Because Wilder has clearly stepped up. He wants to fight. He keeps telling you he wants to fight. He's now even turned around and said, right, I'll take 60-40 now. Yet you still haven't called him back to negotiate. Now Eddie Hearn says that, oh, you know, we know Wilder's coming over to obviously see the fight on March 31st. He's going to be commentating ringside with Sky Sports like he did for the Klitschko fight. And Eddie Hearn in the IFL TV interview that I just played a audio clip from for you guys. Again, like I said, I will link that in the description of this video so you can go and watch it yourself. He was asked by Kugan Cassius, so are you going to talk to Wilder? Are you going to have a meeting with him? And he said, yeah, probably. Yeah, we'll probably have a chat with him. How much I believe of that, I don't know. You know, it just feels like, you know, you can't turn around and say, oh, he hasn't stepped up. AJ can't turn around and say he hasn't stepped up when he clearly has stepped up and said, I want to fight you, let's get it on. Alright, he may have been a little bit ridiculous with his demand of 50-50. But again, like I said, that's where you start negotiating and say, look, mate, 50-50 you're not going to get. Give me another number. Eddie Hearn should say, give me another number. And he would have probably turned around and said 60-40. You start thrashing out a deal. That's lucrative for both fighters. But no attempts been made. So for AJ to turn around and say he hasn't stepped up is, for lack of words, bullshit. Because he has. You failed to negotiate with him. If you want the fight, you should have gone out and got the fight. You know, you wanted the fight with Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker, when he stepped up and said 50-50, you first said, no, we're not going to give you a 50-50 split. That ain't happening. But you wanted the fight. So you kept negotiating with Joseph Parker and you made the fight. So the same should have been done with Deontay Wilder. If you really wanted that fight, you should have started negotiating with him. But you didn't. So that means you didn't want the fight. I'm not saying AJ's scared of him or anything like that, but I would believe that they're trying to time this fight at the moment. And like I said, I don't think this fight needs any more marinating. And as boxing fans, to be fair with you, all those guys out there who want to talk numbers, who's saying da-da-da, etc. If you're saying no to the 60-40 split, yeah, it shows you don't want to see the fight. Because even if you know, Wilder turned and said, alright, 65-35, you'd probably be saying, no, that's still too much. If anyone who doesn't agree with at least that 60-40 foot split and says, yeah, actually, you know what, that's quite reasonable, make the fight happen. As a boxing fan, you shouldn't care anyway. Because you're not getting paid. You're paying for the fight. You're going to pay the pay-per-view price, or if you're going to go and watch the fight, if it's here in the UK, you're going to go, or if you travel abroad and it happens in Vegas, you're paying for the fight. You're not making any money off the fight, so what does it matter to you? What the fighters make? Doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter to you at all. You should look at that 60-40 thing, hey man, that's a good deal. Eddie Hearn, make that fight, come on, let's go. You shouldn't be sitting there saying, no, he's still asking for too much. I don't understand that. I do agree, yeah, AJ should get a little bit more, like I said, because he is the A side in this whole situation. But 60-40 seems reasonable. It's respectful to AJ and it's definitely respectful to Deontay Wilder. Start negotiating. And if you think it's 5% more than it should be, then pick up the phone, Eddie, and tell him that. Why are we waiting for him to come back to you again? You're making no attempt, and that's why, in my opinion, I just think this fight's not going to happen till mid or even possibly late 2019. That's what I think. Look, that's just my take on the whole situation. I think 60-40 is a really good deal. I think it's respectful, like I said, of both fighters. I don't see what the issue is really with that. From a fan point of view, from boxing fans' point of view, I just want to see the fight. You know, end of the day, I think 60-40, like I said, good split. I think it's fair to both fighters, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me. A lot of people are going to still say to me, oh, 40%, are you mad? Deontay Wilder's only making a couple of million a fight. So what if he's making only a couple of million a fight? Is he selling out the Brooklyn? Did he sell out the Barclays Center in his last couple of fights? Yeah, he did. He may not be getting paid as much as Anthony Joshua, fine, but that's why he's deserving of that 40%. It's the biggest fight out there probably in boxing right now, and you want the guy to walk away with what, 4, 5 or $10 million? Are you mad? You put yourself in Wilder's shoes. So let me put it this way. Put yourself in Deontay Wilder's shoes. Yeah? You're Deontay Wilder. Would you accept $10 million or less for, you know, a fight against Anthony Joshua, which will possibly be the biggest fight in heavyweight boxing and in the sport of boxing this year or next year? Whenever it happens, it'll be the biggest fight in boxing. Would you happily just walk away with 10 million or less? No, you wouldn't. So let me try and say you would. You wouldn't. You would go out there and get as much. You would go out there and get what you think you're worth. And Deontay Wilder is clearly saying he feels he's worth 40%, pay me 40%. So, like I said, that's my look on it. That's my viewpoint on it. But like I said, I don't think the fight's going to happen till 2019. Potentially, that's what I think. Like I said, Eddie Hearn's talking about Jarrell Miller versus Anthony Joshua in August. Then he's got to fight Povetkin at some point, mandatory challenger, WBA mandatory challenger. That will probably happen at the end of the year or early parts of 2019. So we're not going to see Wilder and Joshua till 2019, in my opinion. And like I said, I'll be really shocked if it happens late 2018 or even, you know, next. I'll be really shocked. Alright, that's just my take on it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. As always, like, share and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.